This program is financially supported by the fundings from the European Commission.
You are listening to the Ebu Access Cast, the first official podcast from European Blind Union about assistive technology for blind and partially sighted people. And here are the hosts.
Welcome to Ebu Access Cast number 18. This is the first episode in 2020. My name is Mario Percinic. I'm coming to you from Luxembourg. And with me in our Ebu Access Cast, I have Paweł Masarczyk from Poland. Hello.
Hello.
There's a Tanya Cloud from Luxembourg as well. Hi, Tanya.
Hello, everyone.
And Bart Simons from Belgium.
Hello,
Hi,
and Happy New Year to all the listeners.
Oh, yeah. And Happy New Year from all of us as well.
Definitely.
So, we have been off for about 4 weeks. Did anybody get some new tech for the Christmas or not?
No.
No, not really here.
Nobody.
No new hardware, but we got in Belgium Google Assistant available on the Sonos devices. So I activated that, so I didn't have to buy a new machine. But I have now access to Google Assistant on my speakers. So that became available since a few weeks. And they roll it out country by country, so it took a while for Belgium to be in the list, but it's now available.
And are you happy with the results?
Yeah, of course you are linking different services together, and you have to get all the settings right. You have Google settings, and Sonos settings, and Spotify settings, and to have them playing nicely together was a bit of a challenge. My Google account is via a G Suite. It's not a direct gmail.com, but it's with my own device, with my own domain name registered at Google. So you can have your email with your own domain name going via Google with a G Suite. And there seems to be a setting, because it's an old one. I activated since maybe 10 years, and I never go into the settings. And I had to enable something on a domain level, not on user level, but on domain level, to allow to go through. So that was a bit of a research, but it's particular to my case, because if you have a direct Gmail address, you have only your user settings. But on top of that, I had my domain settings in this case, and there one checkbox was missing, and it didn't want to play the music. So I got it configured.
Okay, but you got it configured, so that's good. Yeah. Besides the Sonos thing, I have to say that my Fossil is still working. And from day to day, I'm discovering new things and the new apps for the smartwatch what you can use. I have to say I was really happy to find one app called Up in the Air, which is also available for Android and iOS devices, and for the Apple Watch as well, and the Wear OS Android watches. And what this app allows you to do is it's giving you all the informations which are related to your flights, which is cool. So you can get all the notifications on your wrist, and it's really working. Now when I was on the holidays, I played with the app, and I was able to see all the things for my flights in the real time when the stuff was happening. So eventually, when I was on the airport, when they announced, for example, that there is a boarding, I got immediately notified also on my watch that the boarding has started. And you can see also in advance, like until what time you have the boarding, when is your flight, which gate you have to go and stuff. So it's really useful.
Do you also see your boarding passes in the app, or just the notifications?
I don't know, actually. I think that you can see your boarding passes. There are things where you can configure special things if you need it. So, for example, you can see your tags for your luggages, and in case you have your lost luggage, you can also configure that so that you get also notifications when your luggage is found or whatever is happening. So that's good. So yeah, overall it's really useful. And what I've also found out on the ice-free list was that because usually when you're using by default this Fossil Gen 5 watch, then you have the situation where when you use the volume up and down buttons, which are usually used as the buttons for shortcuts, then you're just adjusting the volumes for talkback or media volumes or whatever. But then one of the users said that you have to use a crown button in conjunctions with those buttons to get to the shortcuts, and yeah, it does work. So that was nice tip to find as well. And I also was playing with the ADB shell, so I installed additional apps on the watch which are not natively available on the Play Store. So I was able to get the alternative TTS engines, so I'm not just using the Google TTS, but I can switch to the eSpeak or Eloquence or whatever I want. So that's also cool, because you have different response time than on the watch, so the hardware works faster. And overall, it was it's I really like the gadget, I have to say. And what I said the last time, the internal mic and the speaker now with the last updates are really working nice, and they're eventually pretty loud when you crank them. So yeah. And yeah, when you switch the battery mode to the custom mode, so when you configure everything how is to your likings, then you can get like easily go through the day without charge. Well, of course, the thing is that, but it's not only related to my watch, it's related also to the Apple Watch and all the other watches, is that once you start using our assistive technologies with speech, the battery starts to drain very, very fast. So eventually, if we are playing something and doing something on the watch with the screen reader, the battery seems to go drastically down quite quickly. But once you stop it and your watch is in the so-called like standby mode or whatever, just receiving notifications and stuff, then you're going through the day quite okay. So that's just one thing to know. Okay, so that was about my rambling for my watch. Eventually, Pavel, did you see there was also an article in the I think it was Android Police, where they were announcing all the stuff on CES 2020 for the smartwatches, and basically they said that most of them are based on the Fossil group. So I was happy that I got my watch.
Yeah, I saw the Diesel. Even Diesel has their own watch now. I think it's the same Diesel that makes the engines, and it's also based on the Fossil. So go figure.
So yeah. I got nice peak last year.
Yes, one to rule them all.
Speaking of the news, well, the first part of the news is, as we already started to mention, the CES 2020. It comes from CES, and that's for those of you who don't know, it's the Consumer and Electronics Show. Well, let's say the biggest technological event in the world, happening at January each year. It's happening in Las Vegas. And from, I don't know, is it just my observation or something is changing, but I'm starting to notice that this year there were more companies, different companies, which start to make kind of accessible and assistive products than before. What do you think, guys?
I think it was the first time. I don't think the recent years I saw at least as much of this as possible, albeit some of these products we already know. It's not like everything you see at CES is brand new.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So you saw it probably at CSUN last year or Site City or wherever. But it's good that the assistive technology is receiving so much attention on the CES, on mainstream events. However, I see the journalism behind it, and a lot of these technology sites are not getting things right, really. Like they still saying Braille language, for example, translated into Braille language. And so you see that there is still a lot of confusion as to how this accessibility works in mainstream media. But at least they're receiving the attention that they need, and I guess that's good. And I think it's the first time when we see so many of those companies. Although, of course, you have to follow the right media to find this information sometimes, because they are not the big players. They are not Samsung or Xiaomi. So they are not noticed by everyone, but if you know where to look for this news, you will find who is there and what products they have.
Yeah. So the first news from CES comes from a company called PCT. They announced their Braille tablet. It's called Tactile Pro, and from what we could see from the article, It is based. We don't know on what is it based, basically, regarding the operating
I
system.
think it said Android in some passage.
Okay, I didn't see it, but
Yeah, it did say Android, but at the same time it said that it works in conjunction with your mobile phone. So I found it a bit confusing if it works standalone or how much standalone it is. But I think underneath it's Android. I just don't know how open.
right. So eventually, they say that with this tablet, it's able to go. You're able to go on the internet, read the stuff online, even
read and touch also graphics. But it didn't say in any part. Is it a multi-line touch screen or nothing is specified? And also how many dots or cells there are on the screen? And is it based on the cells or how? Because it says multi-level braille.
Yeah, I suppose that it should be like a braille with the multiple braille lines.
Yeah, because multi-level would mean that it can the height can be in different levels, but we don't know how many lines there are.
Yeah, true. There was a. If you go on the website, you can see the article about it, and there is a certain YouTube video for the product, which is visually showing the product. However, if you are blind, you don't get too much information about the technical aspect for the product. So it's up to the time to see if the product will come to us soon in Europe, or it will be shown. If it will be shown on the big events such as CSUN and Side City, for example. It would be nice to see it, because by the concept is it's cool, but yeah, we would require more information.
Yep.
So if anybody knows something more about this Tactile Pro tablet, feel free to contact us and give us more information, because we would like to know.
Yeah, because there are not so many information on the official website. No information about the size of the device and weight. That would be also interesting, because we know that usually Braille devices can be quite large and heavy.
Yeah.
And also it says that it gives graphics automatically, but it doesn't specify all graphics. Or, I'm sure that there is a limit where AI cannot reproduce really any graphic. So nothing in that sense is specified. But it can also give you the information by the sound. So I'm wondering if it speaks, maybe.
They're saying that it uses the voice. So my assumption is that it has some kind of screen reader under that.
Yeah.
This is what...
Also, I don't know. It's promised to be a revolutionary device, like the first on the market. But to me, it sounds like another Braille note taker. Just with graphics display, and maybe there is Android there, maybe there are some apps pre-installed, but I think it's more or less like another note taker device.
Yeah,
time will tell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is one of the things. Time will tell what is it. But however, if somebody has some more infos, please contact us and tell us what's going on. So another thing which comes from the CES was the announcement of the Hub to You phone, which displays the graphical, which displays everything in the touch form and vibration. So a few months ago we had a similar product from Philips. However, what I was able to read is that this device, which will come out, they didn't say when, but this device is utilizing the piezo technology, which is installed under the display. So then the display is supposed to vibrate and give some additional information, so you can see how the objects look. If you are writing a message, you can see where are the letters on the screen, etc., etc. However, that means that you have to know the sighted alphabet in order to know where you are and which letter is which. So it doesn't use Braille. But overall, the concept of such gadget is interesting. The company said that they are not aiming this product specifically to the end users, but more to the developers and the OEM product manufacturers. So that means that, for example, if such concept becomes alive, let's say, and let's say the Apple or Google becomes interested in buying the patents from them, then we could see such technology probably imported at some point in the future devices or so. What do you think, guys, about that?
Well, I think it's interesting concept. I wonder how much it is different from Philip. But what is indeed interesting, what you said, the patent may attract original equipment manufacturers and system integrators, and then they can implement it into their devices. So maybe if attracts more interest, we may see more this product, this solution. But again, the time will tell how, in which direction this will go.
I think these tactile technologies are sort of this holy grail of the tech companies, especially assistive technology companies, that they're trying to achieve. And even recently, Apple has applied for a patent where it will also draw a sort of tactile representation of the shapes on the screen by means of electric shocks. So, will be somehow treated with electricity, but through that we'll be able to see what's on the screen. I think there are also some attempts with some hydro-based technology. We will have to see. It's a bit like indoor navigation. Many people have ideas, many people want patents, but we have to see what finally will be market viable and user-friendly and cost-effective and so on.
Sure, yeah.
Before it wins any wider publicity.
Yeah. Well, overall, I'm happy that we are going forward, and that we will probably see some improvements in that area in the next few years for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So after some conceptual devices, another thing which was presented at the CES were two products from the Orcam company. We have heard for Orcam for the last few years. Now they're originally coming from Israel and becoming popular everywhere. However, this year they decided to show their new two products. One is called Orcam Hear and the other is called Orcam Read. So the first thing is very interesting to the listeners who have hearing problems, because this is the device which is specialized for hearing impaired people, because it is it's aiming to replace your hearing aids, because it's utilizing a new technology which they called a cocktail party effect, where basically this technology is able to isolate the listeners from one from each other. So for example, if you are like in the room and you have like 10 people talking in the same time, but you're trying to hear what specifically one person is telling to you, they're saying that that their device is supposed to do that, and it's doing it in the two directions. First is sound based, and the second one is also via the camera, which you are wearing on yourself, and the camera is able to read your lip movements. So then it's interpreting what you just said, and it's communicating back to the person what you just said on the small display as well. Sounds interesting. I know that Google had also some innovation in that area with their innovations in the Android as well, and with their Pixel Buds. So yeah, it would be interesting to see how it will work. And the second product which they announced is based on their previous product for reading, which was their glasses and cameras, which were attached to the glasses. Now they made kind of the same product for reading, but as a handheld device, which means that you can take it. I suppose it's kind of shape of a phone, let's say iPhone or something like that. And the product has a camera, and then you would take it into your hand and read. It will scan what's in front of you and read out loud what's happening. Anybody has something to say?
I'm not sure if the hearing aid device will be somehow workable for blind people, because it relies heavily on visuals.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the person who is speaking. to make the distinction mechanism work. And I'm also wondering if the handheld reader, will be somehow cheaper than the camera one, because you actually have to hold it. So the comfort factor is somehow not really reduced, but it's not as portable, or it's not as it can't be as widely used without holding it in your hand. So maybe that will also decrease the price for some people. It may be more affordable. I hope so.
That was also my idea. The glasses are the most, they are hands-free. So I think in most cases it's usable. And if it is a handheld device, why not make an app for a smartphone and make a new device? Are the cameras really better than what we have today in our phones? Or what would be the reason for having a separate hardware and not developing an app then for if you have a hold in your hand?
That's a good question. However, we don't know why they decided to come up with the.
I guess
with
if you
concept.
build your own hardware, you are responsible for what it can deliver. So you can guarantee the quality because you know what processor you have inside, and you have tested it with your target group and your testers, and you can assure that it will work all right. And if you release an app, you can't guarantee if all the phones that people might have will actually work accurately. So then people may complain that, I bought this app from you, it cost me this and that amount of money, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, but that has happened before, that they say if you want to use you need at least iPhone 10, or that has happened before. Like, I think when KNFB Reader started, they also said you need at least iPhone, I don't know, for the camera quality. So that's always possible. It will not be and especially with Android phones, it will be a bit more difficult to specify which cameras are good enough. And it's not a solution for everybody, because of course not everybody has the latest iPhone and most capable Android device. But I think it will still be cheaper than a dedicated device that indeed they control fully, but is of course much more expensive because they sell fewer items than smartphones. But okay, we'll see.
Yeah. Right now we can just speculate about it, but the good thing is that there are events coming, such as Side City and CSUN. So if anybody will go there, we can test the things at the place and see perhaps why did they go that way, and eventually also what are the pricing for it. Yeah. All right, so more or less that's our short coverage of the assistive part from CES 2020. There will be additional links in our show notes for each of the articles where you can follow up what's going on, and if something interests you more, check it out. So, right now we are going to the new thing, and that's related to the web accessibility.
On the International Day of Persons with Disabilities that occurs on the 3rd of December, the W3C announced the launch of the free online introduction accessibility course. International experts, trainers from W3C member organizations will give a strong foundation of digital accessibility, how to make accessible websites and mobile applications, how to meet international standards, and also to give good user experience to all users. I think this is a great opportunity for anyone who is developing or involved in creating web and mobile applications now, because we have a legal framework. We have the Web Accessibility Directive that is in force, and also the Accessibility Act that is upcoming. So it's great time to follow this course. It starts on the 20th of January, and it will last for a few weeks. It is self-paced.
Yeah, but probably if there will be more interest, there is a possibility that the course will be repeated later as well. I mean, there is no announcement yet. There is no announcement about it yet, but
that's
it's possible.
I guess also depending how many people will enroll, but I guess that there will be many. Also, it's up to us to share it on social medias so that people know it. I think there will be many people interested in that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's good. Now we need more people who are educated about the web accessibility, because the new laws are being applied, and we need more educated stuff. So after we got something to say about web accessibility, we can say what's needed for the accessibility of the museums. And I think, Pavel, you're the right person to say that.
At least in terms of the Arches project, which is the subject of this news item, it's an EU-funded project where 6 museums in the UK, in Spain, and in Austria took part in it, and they developed a lot of things that are useful. On the one hand, they developed apps for mobile phones, which are sort of games where you can play around with the pictures presented in the galleries of the museums. You can read the detailed descriptions. You can add them to collages to make a sort of game out of it, to create your own art experience with the app. There were also multimedia guides developed, which were a bit more inclusive with sign language avatars showing the spoken text, and also with a bit more in-depth audio description. And of course, there were academic papers and guidelines that owners or managers of art experience sites can read through to apply some of these techniques in their own museums. And I have taken a look at some of the games, and I must say that, I could find the descriptions. The apps are both web-based, and you can also download each of the museum's apps on both iOS and Android as a standalone app. So there are the descriptions, you can read through them, and that's fine. And then you can somehow add the pictures that you like to the canvas, so to start this kind of game. But I haven't found what you can do afterwards. You can somehow save the picture that you created out of this collage, but I don't know if that's anyhow accessible, if you can anyhow... There are some buttons, of course, to control where which item is, and it's announced that this is in the center, for example. But I don't know if you can anyhow imagine what the end result will look like, and if it's anyhow aesthetic to look at, and so on. But nevertheless, you can read through the descriptions, and you can experience. There are even, I think, the videos and audio for the guides or the text information is also available there on the website of the project. And of course the academic papers and the deliverables, so how the project exactly ran, how they were conducting the research, because there were also people with disabilities involved in this research. And every single step of the project, you can look at that. It's publicly available information. And if you're an art institution, you can draw on this experience and you can possibly improve what you offer.
And what I found it interesting is also that they emphasized that there are anti-discrimination laws, that public buildings like museums are accessible, but what they see is a gap between the minimum requirements and also the real accessibility for persons with disabilities, and they want to involve persons with disabilities.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. So after we went to see what's happening in the museum, we can play some music. Well, we got some news for the musicians who are visually impaired, and the first news comes from the guy called Joe Birch. Joe Birch is the developer who is specialized in providing accessible apps for Android, and he has been also developing various devices and projects in the past, such as a Braille newsreader in 2017. But what he has done this time is something that's really cool, I have to say, for people who are struggling with learning the guitar, because he built it Raspberry Pi smart guitar, and basically that's a guitar that looks like the acoustic guitar with multiple sensors and AI things involved. So basically it is aimed for people who are blind, who are deaf, and who are also mute, which means that people are not able to talk. So the guitar itself allows the person to learn how to play chords, where do you need to press, and which strings you need to press, and how to play the chords. And you're able to ask the guitar what do you need to do via built-in AI, which is based on Google's framework. So it uses like a Google Assistant. There's a speaker on the guitar which talks back to you the information. However, if you're not able to hear the stuff, you can, and you are deaf, then you can see all the information presented on the small display. And there are also buttons for repeating the same thing which you asked before, so you don't have to ask again. Or there are also buttons for talking. So you press a button and then you say what you have to say. But that's, as they say, that's not all. If you turn the guitar to the back, then you can see also a small refreshable braille display built into the guitar. And the information presented on the braille display is the same as it's presented in the visual form on that small display. This, however, since it's a braille display, it's presented in the braille form notation. What are you supposed to press, and which frets you're supposed to press, and which strings you're supposed to strum, etc. I think it's really nice thing for people who have one or even multiple disabilities, but they want to be involved with music. And it's cool that we got some device that it's also aiming a deaf-blind community, because there are not too many such devices. So that's cool. There will be a link for that in the show notes for the project. You can also watch a short video description and video demonstration of the unit, and you can also get on the page where everything is documented, how the developer built the instrument and what he used, and perhaps you can also order one if you need it. But yeah, it's nice that somebody is thinking about our community and people who are really struggling a little bit more to learn how to play string instruments. So that's nice.
Yeah, I think it is really great, the idea of the smart guitar. Also, that he assembled the technologies that we already know, but he assembled in one and made a device that is really accessible to everyone. It's really amazing. But all of the technologies, like text to speech or braille or display, we all of that know, but it's assembled together, and it is amazing also to think that that person can play the guitar.
Yeah, it's really cool concept. I mean, by there is nothing new that we don't know, but when you, as you said, when you put everything in a one unit and combine everything together, it's really cool what he achieved. And I mean, we are talking about one person developing that. We are not talking about the serious manufacturing process. So if somebody would be interested from the companies to develop that project even further, who knows what would come out of that. I mean, personally, I could not see having and wearing this kind of device on stage while playing, because it's just physically bigger than the rest of the, let's say, guitars or basses. But really, for the educational purposes, it's really, really nice. So for somebody who wants to learn it and have it at home and play whenever they want to play with it, it's really, really nice.
Yeah, I think it's also meant for practice more than for serious gigs. So for that,
Sure.
It will definitely fill the purpose.
Yeah. Okay, and the next part of the news for the musicians, which that's something I really found a revolutionary, I have to say, and that's the announcement from Avid and the Berklee College of Music that they will finally make together the accessible features to the Sibelius musical software. Now, for those of you who don't know what Sibelius software is, the shortest explanation, what I can say, is that it's kind of Microsoft Office for musicians, which means that whenever you are studying something related to the music and you need to do any kind of composing on the computer, and in today's educational systems, this is what we must use. Not we as a blind people, but what everybody must use. This is a great, really great news, because now they even said that they will make the adjustments to the Sibelius software so that almost every screen reader will be able to use it equally. That includes NVDA, JAWS, and the voiceover. And this is really, really something fantastic. I can say that from my personal experience, when I was last year on the Jazz Conservatory here in Luxembourg, I struggled a bit with the parts for composing. And I had a courses where I had to do the composing. So yeah, we had to use different kind of tools. And one of the tools which of course was used on the conservatory was Sibelius, and I could use it, but really not as effectively as the other people. However, as we can see, this is something that will change, and it's already ongoing thing, because eventually people from Avid, who is a main company developing the product, will have their workshop on the accessibility of the Sibelius on the NAMM show. And that's gonna be tomorrow on the January 19th. And the NAMM show is like something equivalent to the CES for the what's a CES for consumer electronics. That's the NAMM show for the musicians. That's like the biggest event for the manufacturers of the all kinds of instruments who are coming from all parts of the world every year in the States to represent that. And seeing that these kind of things will happen there was really something revolutionary because eventually we can see that accessibility is coming to the mainstream slowly but surely. If they get like even 5 or 10 people there at the workshop, seeing that their product, which everybody knows what's Sibelius, who are in the music scene, that they are taking care of the accessibility, that's a really, really positive sign. So that's really, really, really nice, I have to say. Also, for you who know a little bit about the audio recording, the Avid company is also manufacturing the Pro Tools, and the Pro Tools are it's the digital audio station, recording station, which is basically used in most of the studios. Wherever you go now to any kind of good studio for recording, people will use Pro Tools there. And eventually what happened with the Pro Tools a few years ago, which is mainly utilized on the macOS platform, was that the Pro Tools at one point became inaccessible for us as a blind users. And there was a huge outcry from the crowd that something has to be done. And eventually Avid listened to that, and they reconfigured their software and they made it again accessible. And so eventually, whenever you are talking to the blind musicians and recording engineers who are doing that job for their daily living, they will use a Pro Tools in their studio, and they can use it as effectively as anybody else who doesn't have any kind of disability. And that's great. This is really, I found it really, really nice.
Is Pro Tools as accessible on Windows as it is on the Mac?
No.
Because when I last time was trying to find it out, I figured there is some kind of discrepancy there.
Yeah. No. On Windows, they are not as accessible as on Mac. So if you're having any kind of visual disability and you are depending on Pro Tools, you have to use the Mac one. But over there, it's really working.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay. So of course, as we said before, we will have also all the links about the Pro Tools, about the Sibelius accessibility, and the smart Raspberry Pi guitar in our show notes. So who is interested, go ahead and check out our show notes. And now we come to the third list of topics for our podcast, and that's related to the jobs and scholarships. So the best person to say something about it is Bart. Hello, Bart.
I think the first topic is the more or less conclusion of an international project called VIP Tech, which is not very, very original name. But it's all about employment of visually impaired people, which we all know is a very important and difficult topic. So this international consortium had a project for, I think, 2 years, and they launched now their results. And they want to help job seekers with, of course, an app. Everybody makes an app today, yeah? So they make an app where to help job seekers, like to train them. What is a good CV? Where can you find job announcements? And it's available in several languages. I know at least Spanish, English, Italian, maybe more. And they also allow translation. So if you feel you want to contribute to the project, you can register as a translator and make the information of this course available in more languages. And a second topic in this app is that they want to facilitate finding job opportunities, because that's often a first barrier to get access to published jobs. And so they want to facilitate this. So at least the first 2 steps of finding a job are covered by this project, finding the job announcements and some help with CV writing and some tips for your job interviews, specifically if you are blind or visually impaired. It's a project run by or initiated by Views International. So that's mainly for young people under 30. But of course, the results of this project are useful for anybody applying for a job.
Mm-hmm.
As always, the link to this app will be in the show notes.
Yeah, so this app, what you just mentioned, is it the app which will, is it a web-based app or it's an app that's running on your phone?
It's a web-based app. So,
okay,
of course, it can run on the phone, but you don't have to install it.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I think the EBU was also included in that project as well.
I don't know how closely, but at least the EBU endorses the outcomes. And of course, as we all know, employment is a big topic for the European Blind Union. So yeah absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you are still in school, but you would like to get some scholarships, there are announcements from the Oracle as well, and EDF.
It's an opportunity for students who have a disability themselves, who are taking any course in ICT or programming or anything computer technology related. And if you're doing a PhD or a dissertation that is trying to improve people with disabilities' life, so again, if you are developing an app or making a study or any topic related to this, you can apply for a scholarship given by Oracle. And the project is coordinated by the European Disability Forum. So I think they're also part of the jury, so I think they are more neutral, and they can help the jury in seeing if this is which of the projects are most worth to be sponsored with this scholarship. It takes 6,500 euro, so makes worth to take a look at it. The exact conditions are published online, and of course we link to them. But important to know is that the deadline for application is early March, I think the 5th of March.
Yeah, March 6th, I think.
Yeah, so be quick to check that out if you are in that case and you want to apply.
Yeah, this is like the 4th edition of that scholarship, and it seems that this could be really useful for young students, especially who are in the IT field, mm-hmm. and who wish to improve the life of the others who have disabilities. So mm-hmm. Go ahead and apply.
I can just say that also I think one of the rewards, if you manage to get through with your project, apart from, of course, the fact that you can create your project or your paper, you can present it at an annual EDF event in front of the European Parliament in Brussels. At least that was the case 2 years ago, last year actually, in 2018. And I was able to take part in this event, so it's definitely, I guess, an honor for such a creator to present in front of everyone who can come, and this event is promoted among MEPs, so you might be lucky that some of them will actually come and see you present your project. So you also have the chance to raise awareness of accessibility needs among politicians, like important, prominent politicians of the Euro Parliament. So I guess this is also something that makes it even more worth doing.
All right, cool. Well, the next thing is also related to, and could be related to, the studying and getting the information, and that's because Index Braille company has their donation program for 2020, and they're giving out Braille printer, right?
That's another contest you can apply for in the coming weeks. It's tailored to NGOs who promote Braille literacy. That can be very broad, giving access to printed works through Braille. And if we all know that Braille embossers are quite expensive, especially for NGOs who don't get any funding. That's also part of the conditions of this contest. You can apply for a free Index Braille printer with a acoustic hood, so that you can install it anywhere and it's not too loud. I don't know exactly the deadline for application, but the winners will be announced on Louis Braille's Day, 4th of January next year. So it's also an annual contest that they run. It's of course commercial thing to be in the news, but I think it can be a good opportunity for NGOs who could otherwise struggle to acquire such a device. So again, check out the conditions and try your luck with this contest.
Yeah, especially if you are one of those who are promoting Braille and using Braille in their work. Yeah, and if you're in need for a new Braille embosser, go ahead and apply. So, we covered our contests. For this episode, we had quite much, I have to say. There is one more, and this one is really interesting, I have to say. It's called the Holman Prize, and Tanya, you know something more about it?
Yeah, so this one is not strictly related to IT, but
it can be.
It can be also. So for any blind creator or also adventurer, you can now apply for the Holman Prize. That is the annual competition where you can win $25,000 for the most ambitious project. So the idea of this prize is to raise awareness what blind people can achieve, but also to reward the most ambitious project by a blind individual. As example, last year, the prize winner was Uma Deko, a software engineer and specialist in 3D and media. So he created an application called Astros that enable blind person to search and explore for exoplanets by listening the space. Because sighted persons can explore the space with a telescope, and for blind persons this is completely out of reach. And this application would make accessible by sound and also touch dimension. However, I didn't find more information where is it only an application or it would require a special device, because I found an article that it will be put in production in February last year, but I didn't find more information about that. But the winner last year was the software engineer. So it is a great opportunity if you are working on an ambitious project to apply to this prize and try to win the prize.
Not, I thought initially it was kind of USA centric, but it's because it's initiated by San Francisco-based
San Francisco
organization.
Lighthouse, yeah.
But they say they have winners from 5 different countries already, so it seems totally global.
On 4 continents.
Yeah, it is global.
Yes, because the guy from last year he's from Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, so eventually, if we have some smart inventors, blind inventors, or whatever, who are creators, who think they.
Or travelers, because
Yeah.
you can actually even there were examples of people crossing mountains or getting through the Bosphore on their own. I don't know if the requirement is that all of the participants of this activity have to be blind and they have to do it on their own, or they can have a bit of help. I don't know, but many of these projects are somehow related to doing some unusual activities independently.
Yes.
Because James Holman was an 18th century or 19th century traveler, an explorer who traveled long before GPS was available and when white cane laws were pretty much non-existent. So that was this achievement they want to honor.
Yeah, well, in any case, if you are the adventurer, a person who wants to change the future, let's say like that, and you think you have a good idea, check out the requirements for the Holman Prize, because you have to also prepare a short 90 seconds video where you will present your project which you want to do. But yeah, check out the requirements. You have to apply also, I think, until the beginning of March, or yeah, it's written on the page. So there is still time left to do that. So check out the link from our show notes, and maybe you will be the next one, the next prize winner.
We give a lot of homework to our listeners this time.
Well, once we have to, man.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the year. They have to do something.
And also of the decade.
Think what you can achieve if you combine the Oracle scholarship and the Holman Prize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe on the way to achieve that, you would use the Google Interpreter on your smartphone, because right now it's available. It becomes available for the smartphones, so including Android and iOS devices. We made the demonstrations of the Google Interpreter a few months ago when it became available for the home devices, and it was working quite fine. I have to say I just tried it on my phone before we started our podcast, and it does work. So yeah, if you need to translate something from one language to the other, now you can use the Google Interpreter mode. So what you just need to do is you need to call your Google Assistant and say, "Be my interpreter," and then it will start the interpretation mode. However, when it announces "Let's start," you need to call your assistant again. So there will not be a sound indicating that it's starting. You need to call your assistant again and then start talking. And then it will start translating as well. And when you are finished, you just need to say stop translation, and it will be finished.
Do you know if this is available from other languages than English?
Yeah, you can translate from English to Dutch, from Dutch to English, to French, to whatever.
I tried Polish Chinese.
What?
I tried Polish Chinese and it worked, so...
I think 40 languages are covered. It was written in the article.
Sometimes these functions roll out first for English and come then later, but that's okay. I know they can do it since a long time, this interpretation. Yeah. That's cool.
Did you also try it on the watch, Mario? Mm-hmm. Does it work there as well?
No, I didn't try it on the watch yet. I will try it after we are finished with our recording.
You have to try it now so that we see if it is reliable.
Well, okay, why not? Let's see. I just need to power up.
Now we are in a multi-language environment here.
Yeah. I just need to power up my watch because it's sleeping today. However, there is something else I'd like to report that I discovered, and it can be really interesting for our listeners, and that's the possibility of checking your air quality around you. The thing is, why I discovered that is because recently we had the announcement that the air quality in Zagreb was really bad for a few last days, and people, especially kids, had to be kept in schools, and they were not allowed to get out of schools because, well, the air quality was bad. And you could get poisoned, and eventually, if it's too bad, then you can faint, and experience all kinds of different bad experiences. So eventually, there is a function where you can call a Google Assistant and you can say talk to air quality index, and then it will call up the service. It will say that it needs information for your current location, and if you allow it, then it will report you back your air quality index.
This is the most current issue in many cities, unfortunately, because the air quality started to be very bad. And I think it's an interesting information. Also, sometimes because of the weather, the air quality decreases. And then, for people who are sensitive, it can be really a problem if...
and if you're allergic as
or
well,
suffering from any
also...
breathing problems or whatever, or also elderly people or kids, they're sensitive. So it's good to have this information. But also on information level, it's interesting. And the service from the Google Assistant communicates with the closest measuring station.
Yeah, we also seem to have a local skill like that in Poland. I live in actually quite an industrial region, so we have this problem quite a lot. And even my local warning, meteorological warning app keeps sending me, maybe not every day, but quite often. And it's like one of the first things a lot of people here do when they want to go out. They just look at the phone if the quality is all right, because the situation is like that, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so my watch is powered up. Let's see if the interpreter works on the watch. Be my interpreter.
Here's something from...
It doesn't work.
Okay. Did you also specify the language, or you didn't need to do that? Because
it will ask you if it understands, and if it works, then it will tell you which language do you choose and stuff. Let's try it once more. Be my interpreter.
Here's something from Google.
It doesn't.
Then I think it's for the phones for the moment.
However, for the phone it works.
Yeah.
Let's just check on the phone once more to show the listeners. Hey Google, be my interpreter.
All right, what language should I interpret to?
French.
All right, French.
So now I just need to say, hey Google, how are you doing?
Comment allez-vous?
Yeah.
Hey Google, stop translating.
Sure, I'll stop translating.
Yeah, so it works.
And what is interesting, you have also on the screen the same text. Maybe for persons who have low vision, can also see the text on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find it convenient because I thought at first, why do I need this if Google Translate, the app already has this mode of talking to each other. But I realized that in the Maps app, you actually have two microphones, and you have to press the right microphone for your text to be recognized. So there is the one microphone for the source language, the other one for the destination language and the target. And it's a bit inconvenient if you want to get something done quickly, like you're at the shop and you want to ask for some products off the shelf and you don't speak the language. And here, actually, you put Google Assistant in a sort of loop. So whatever you say to it, it's interpreted as a text to be translated. And if you say something in English, it will put it in French. If you say something in French, it will put it back in English. So it's kind of universal, and you just need to trigger the assistant, and that's it. So it's super convenient when you're on the road and you quickly need to ask for something, you lost your way, you need to buy something, which is, I would have used it if it were available. I would have used it a lot of times the first time I arrived, for example, in Luxembourg, because, my French, even for basic things, wasn't that good back then. And often if I asked for the way, it wasn't always assured that people will speak the languages that I speak. So I can imagine using that.
Yeah, sure. It absolutely can be used in those cases. So, yeah. Okay, so we just saw that the interpreter is still not available for watch, unfortunately, but I'm sure it will arrive soon, so it will be able to utilize that as well, because the Wear OS apps, they update quite frequently, I have to say. Especially the main Google Assistant app, I think I see the updates at least once a week, or even not twice a week. So there's every time some improvements coming. And we have come to believe it or not, the last announcement for today and for our podcast, as we don't have any demos, and that's related to the good old gaming. Well, what's happening is that if you would like to play some games from the 80s, then obviously you need to use some game emulators on your PC. However, if you're a gamer who is blind or low vision and you need to require some utilization with the assistive technology, you were not very successful in the earlier time because those emulators were not accessible. However, there is a one that just has shown up, and they integrated the accessibility features into it. It's called the Old Arch. Is it right, Pavel?
RetroArch.
Oh, RetroArch. Okay.
Yeah, it's RetroArch. So basically what it does, it's an open source universal emulator. So most consoles that you can think of are supported. I think even the older PlayStation, like 1 and 2, will go. And what you can do from now is that thanks to AI and OCR technology integration, and thanks to making it accessible with speech, I think for now it's SAPI 5 on Windows, and on the Mac it will be Apple scripts and dispatcher on the Linux, speech dispatcher. You can read, sort of, and I will explain in a moment why sort of, the menus or the texts that appear on the screens in the game. So whenever there is a menu, you can read it. Whenever there is a piece of the storyline displayed to you on screen, you can read it. The way it works, sadly, for now, is that it takes a shot of the entire screen, so everything is read to you at once. So if you are in a menu...
Okay, so that's why it was confusing, because we were watching the demo.
Yeah.
And it was like, wait a second, why is he repeating the information? And it's because it's reading the whole screen. Okay.
Exactly. So when you're in a menu, you can't really tell what is highlighted at the moment. So you have to memorize the entire menu by heart, and you have to think in your head how many times you have to click the arrow key to get to your option and press enter. But then, I mean, there are some blind gamers who are already experienced enough that they even managed to learn the menus of some favorite games with sighted people before, or thanks to some descriptions on Wikipedia or somewhere. And they were able to play like this. So I think for them, this is already a bit of improvement, but not much of a game stopper in the way. But I think they're keen on improving it, and maybe in the future it will also read what is highlighted, so you can actually browse through menus and select your favorite weapons or character or fatality or whatever you have to choose there. Mm-hmm. And they are also thinking how else they could improve the game. For instance, how to make the user aware of some events on the screen when you have a fighting scene or you are playing some sports game. They of course have to interpret all the visual cues into audio cues, so they are thinking how to do it. But for the beginning, it's good that this exists, and that the developers behind RetroArch are thinking how to improve this experience. So for a start, I think it's good. And the person who was testing this and who made the video that you probably watched, this he was playing I think it was one of the Final Fantasy games. And
yes.
Yeah, and he even said himself he was quite satisfied with the result. So for the beginning, it's okay. I guess it also got some media attention in mainstream media. At least I saw one article in one of our Polish technology portals. So I guess it's also discussed somewhere else as well. And yeah, this is what AI can do.
Cool. I wish this showed up when I was like 20 years younger. Yeah. Then I would play a bunch of those games as well. But yeah, it's really interesting. Unfortunately, you're not able to play Super Mario Bros. Yet.
Yeah,
that's not accessible from what I was able to find out. But well, maybe one day the AI will be able to explain what's happening. So
I mean, this is not the first. Yeah, this is not the first experiment of this kind, because already there was an attempt to make a sort of alternative interface to some fighting games. That the engine was developed for, I think, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, where by analyzing the shots of the RAM memory snapshots, you could interpret the events that are happening, because everything that happens in the game is essentially a piece of really complex code that is displayed in the RAM as well. And based on this analysis, the engine was able to provide some sounds to let the user know what is going on, and they could actually fight quite successfully. I think based on this similar technique, there was some kind of Game Boy emulation for some Pokemon game provided, so you could actually use your screen reader to read one of the Pokemon editions.
Okay.
And also, if you're on Steam, there are many indie games which are a bit less known than the big titles, but they are accessible. I think
what the hell are indie games, man?
Made by independent developers, like indie rock.
Okay. It's not like indie rock.
Yeah, like indie rock. So you probably never heard of this unless you're interested, but they are accessible. I think a lot of blind gamers were quite satisfied with Skullgirls, which is a fighting game somehow. And there the developer put a lot of care that, first of all, the messages are spoken out with screen readers, and secondly, that all the audio that you can get is there. So for example, there is a character which throws a chair at his opponent, and when he throws the chair and the chair goes missing, like it doesn't hit the target, but it actually lands on the floor, you can hear where the chair is lying, so you can come and pick it up and try again. So it's really advanced, and I think more Steam games are improving on accessibility. Just have to look around which ones, and even if your favorite game is not accessible, but you see that it could potentially be because a lot of sound is there, you can contact the developers, and I think they are quite keen now with all the gaming accessibility conferences. I think there's GA-Conf and many other events where you can learn about how to make games accessible. So this is quite a developing market, and it's interesting to see how far it will get.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the gaming industry is really taking a big part of people's wallets.
Yeah.
We had even, I remember, was it 2018? I think, yeah, it was the last quarter of 2018 where we had the one game from Croatian game developers which reached like the top 5 most popular games in the world in that part of year, and they were getting lots of attention even from the mainstream media from the States as well. And yeah, I have a friend of mine who is working also as a composer for games for a long time, and eventually he's very successful. So yeah, going back to the subject of the products for blind musicians, well, if you learn how to use Sibelius stuff, you can also compose music for the games and become rich guy and then go to CES to Las Vegas. Yeah,
especially now that you can actually purchase soundtracks for games alone on Steam as a separate purchase, so you can see that games by different means are becoming part of pop culture as well.
Sure,
TV shows based on games. And
Sure. And there are really some really interesting and very well produced soundtracks as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, at one of the podcasts we have to broadcast the game music from the 80s. Yeah, speaking of the retro arch.
Yeah, jingles with chiptunes. Why not?
Yeah. All right, folks. I hope that we didn't put too much in uninteresting content for you this time. I hope you liked what we had to say. That's all for our episode for January. Of course, as always, if you have anything to add or anything to comment regarding our episodes, you're free to do that on our Twitter and our email, which is every time presented in our show notes. So yeah. Send us some feedback, and we hope to be with you next month.
Yep, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This has been EBU Access Cast.